Welcome to the Get Fit Guys, quick and dirty tips to slim down and shape up. My name is Ben Greenfield, and I'm the Get Fit Guy. In her episode, What Are the Health Benefits of Fasting?, my fellow quick and dirty tips host, the Nutrition Diva, tells you how fasting can reduce oxidative stress and inflammation in your cells, prevent and repair DNA damage, increase longevity, and reduce your risk of dying from chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease. And she gives some great fasting tips in that episode for the average person. I'll link to that article in the show notes for this episode over at quickanddirtytips.com. But what if you're exercising heavily, you're playing lots of sports, you're burning a high number of calories, or you're engaging in any other type of higher than average physical activity? Does fasting still work, or is it just too hard on your body to restrict calories and work on your fitness at the same time? Well, in this episode, I'm going to give you 6 fasting tips for fitness fans. Discover how fasting can help you lose fat, gain muscle, and recover faster, and learn how to combine fasting and exercise without doing damage to your body. Now, let's jump into fasting. Here's why fasting works. While the majority of exercise nutrition recommendations tell you should shove carbohydrates and protein down your gullet as soon as possible after you finish a workout, there's actually quite a bit of evidence that not eating can also have a recovery effect. There was one study on cyclists that found that 3 weeks of overnight fasted workouts actually increased post-workout recovery while still maintaining lean muscle mass, lower body fat, and performance. And then another study on endurance athletes suggested that fasted training upregulates muscle protein translation, allowing for faster muscle recovery and growth, especially compared to athletes who ate carbohydrates before training. And there are other benefits to fasting too. A 2009 study found that subjects who lift weights in a fasted state have nearly double the muscle building response once they actually eat a post-workout meal. And one way to think of this is that by providing nutrients to your body, exercise in a completely fed state while you're still burping up that pre-workout smoothie can be experienced by the body as less stressful compared to exercise in a fasted state. So since the body is stressed slightly less, it may not actually get quite as fit. In other words, some stress is actually good for building muscle. So just like you need to lift heavy weights to create stress, you can also get some added benefit by lifting in a fasted state. Of course, you shouldn't overdo stress and fasting, but it certainly is a strategy that I'm going to teach you how to maximize in this episode. So, like I mentioned, there's kind of a fasting paradox if you're a very active person. After all, you got to give your body enough nutrients to allow for adequate hormone formation and muscle repair and recovery, and excessive calorie restriction can result in energy deficits and the unpleasant side effect of muscle wasting, which I don't think many of us want. So while you can get away with fasting regularly or for long periods of time if you're a monk sitting cross-legged on a mountaintop for days on end, you simply can't do the same thing if you're swimming and biking and running and weightlifting and doing any other strenuous exercising to get lean and toned and strong. So here are my top 6 steps to successfully implement calorie restriction and fasting without damaging your body. Step number 1. Rather than fasting for 24 hours or longer, limit yourself to just a 12 to 16 hour fast. The most practical and effective fasting strategy that I use and the active individuals that I coach use for fat loss and muscle gain is a 12 to 16 hour fasting window for every 24-hour cycle of eating. So for example, you could eat dinner at 8 p.m., and then you eat nothing until breakfast or an early lunch, sometime between 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. the next day. So this strategy is called intermittent fasting or IFing. Step number 2 is don't fast every day. Skip your fast on high volume or very stressful or extremely intense days. So let's say you've got your one biggest exercise day of the week or a weekend that might involve several hours of exercise if you're, say, training for a marathon. Don't fast on those days. Just eat when you're hungry. The risks simply outweigh the benefits when you combine calorie restriction with high volume exercise or even excessive levels of just lifestyle stress. So be careful not to fast when your body's already extremely stressed. Step number 3 is don't do hard or long workouts fasted. And this relates to what I just got done telling you. An easy morning exercise session like a swim or a run or a bike ride or a bodyweight workout or yoga session that follows an overnight fast is just fine. So is a short 10 or even up to 60-minute higher intensity interval training session, assuming you listen to your body and you're able to maintain your goal intensity. And then you simply recover well and eat your normal breakfast afterwards. But any workout that is A, hard, and longer than 60 minutes, like 90 minutes of running intervals, as you might do if you were training for a marathon, or B, easy to moderate, but longer than 2 hours, should not be done in an overnight fasted state. I'll repeat that. Any workout that is hard and longer than 60 minutes, or is easy and longer than 2 hours, should not be done in an overnight fasted state. This is just a quick path to unhealthy levels of hormone depletion and muscle loss, which I don't think you want. Step number 4 is that some foods are okay to eat when fasting. So there's several foods that actually allow your body to maintain low levels of blood sugar and low levels of the hormone insulin, both of which can help you lose fat faster, but do allow for adequate energy levels and even enhanced fatty acid utilization during your fast. By consuming these foods, you can also lower the amount of hormone or metabolic stress that you might experience when combining fasting with high levels of physical activity. So what are these foods? Some of them include MCT oil or coconut oil, essential amino acids, or what are also called whole amino acids, branched chain amino acids, coffee or green tea, and also spirulina, chlorella, greens powders, or greens supplements. Any of these would still be considered fasting if you were to include them. Step number 5, only occasionally do a 24-hour fast. So every 2 weeks to 2 months, you can choose one day on which you're not going to exercise at all. It's going to be a low-stress day, and you're simply going to clean out your body and allow for enhanced what is called cellular autophagy, which is basically cleanup of your body's junk. This is pretty important for very active people who are eating thousands and thousands of calories per day. This occasional complete day of rest for your muscles, your adrenal glands, and your digestive system can actually be very therapeutic. And it's a strategy that I used recently in the 12-week belly burn plan that I did with fellow Quick and Dirty Tips podcaster, The Mighty Mommy. I'll put a link to that belly burn plan in the show notes for you to check out if you haven't already. And I'll also put a link to some of those foods that support fasting, which I just got done talking about. Now, we're almost done. There's one more step. You need to be careful with fasting if you're female. Many women find that fasting causes sleeplessness, anxiety, irregular periods, and a myriad of other hormonal dysregulation symptoms. I suspect, sorry ladies, that this might be due to some kind of ancestral or evolutionary mechanism that seems to allow men to simply do better heading off into the hills to hunt and gather or fight in a state of calorie restriction, or in the modern era, hit the gym hard. While this same scenario seems to send many women into a complete metabolic and hormonal downspin. I've simply found that when it comes to maintaining health and hormonal status for many of the female clients that I work with, that an occasional complete 24-hour fast can be far more effective and less stressful than daily intermittent fasting, especially if you're exercising and female. Now, if you simply can't resist the idea of daily intermittent fasting, and you're female, I highly recommend that you at least implement those extra nutrients like greens and coconut oil and things like that I recommended back in step 4. So finally, you may wonder if the Get Fit guy fasts, and the answer is yes. So here's how. I usually finish my workout for the day around 6:30 p.m. Then I usually have dinner around 7 or 7:30 p.m. Sometimes I'll have a snack after dinner, especially if it was a hard workout, and my snack is typically some coconut milk with a little bit of chocolate or vanilla protein powder. And I finish that up around 8 p.m. And then generally, I don't eat breakfast until around 10 a.m. the next morning, at which point I'll usually make my world-famous high-fat kale shake, which you can see me making in the video that I'll link to in the show notes. And this is my standard practice 5 days a week. And then I generally just eat when I'm hungry on my heavier exercise volume days, which are usually weekends when I'm training for Ironman triathlon. Now, if you want to learn more about why fasting can be good for your body, especially for enhancing your recovery from workouts, then you should also read the article 26 Top Ways to Recover from Your Workouts and Injuries with Lightning Speed. I'll link to that one in the show notes too, over at quickanddirtytips.com. So if you've got questions, comments, or feedback about fasting for fitness, then check out facebook.com/getfitguy. And next week, I'll be in touch with more nutrition tips if you're an active person, and I'll be telling you how to detox if you're active and you don't want to disrupt your active lifestyle. Until then, what are you waiting for? Go get fit.